Are you reading this while doing something else?
Maybe listening to music.
With several tabs open in your browser, or with your phone nearby receiving notifications? If so, you are part of one of the biggest unintentional psychological experiments in human history. An experiment that is literally rewiring your brain in ways you can't even imagine. Over the last 20 years, our society has embraced a lie so convincing that it has become part of our identity. We believe that being productive means doing multiple things at the same time. We believe that the ability to multitask is a modern superpower. We believe that the more things we can do simultaneously, the more efficient, smarter, and valuable we are. But what if I told you that all of this is an illusion? What if I told you that multitasking not only doesn't make you more productive, but is actively destroying your ability to think deeply, to genuinely connect with other human beings, and to find real satisfaction in what you do? The truth is that your brain was not designed for multitasking. This is a neuroscience discovery that should be on the front pages of every newspaper, but is systematically ignored because it does not serve the interests of an economy that profits from our fragmented attention. When you think you are multitasking, your brain is actually doing something called task switching. Switching tasks. It is rapidly alternating between different activities, and with each switch there is a neurological cost. It's as if your brain needs to reset with every transition, losing important information in the process. Imagine your brain is like a computer trying to run several heavy programs at the same time. What happens? It slows down, freezes, becomes inefficient. Except that unlike a computer which you can simply restart, your brain carries the cumulative wear and tear of this constant overload. Studies show that people who multitask regularly have more difficulty filtering irrelevant information, more problems remembering important details, and take up to 25% longer to complete tasks than those who do one thing at a time. But the scariest part is that they don't even realize this loss of efficiency. They truly believe they are being more productive. This is the cruelest part of the multitasking illusion. It gives us the feeling of doing a lot while in reality, we are doing little and poorly. It's like a drug that gives us a sense of energy and productivity while secretly destroying us from within. Have you ever had those days when you were busy all the time, jumping from one task to another, answering emails, taking calls, checking social media, and at the end of the day felt exhausted but with the feeling that you hadn't really accomplished anything meaningful? That is no coincidence. That is the direct result of your fragmented attention. Attention is not an infinite resource. It is like a muscle that can be strengthened or weakened depending on how you use it. When you constantly divide your attention among multiple tasks, you are essentially exercising fragmentation. You are training your brain to never fully focus on anything. And here is what is truly disturbing. We are creating an entire generation of people who have lost the ability for deep attention. Children who cannot read an entire book without checking their phone. Teenagers who cannot have a conversation without looking at a screen. Adults who cannot watch a movie without doing 3 other things at the same time. Deep attention is not just a cognitive skill. It is the foundation of meaningful human experience. It is through deep attention that we create, innovate, and genuinely connect with others. It is through deep attention that we experience what psychologists call flow, that state of complete absorption in an activity that is one of the most reliable sources of human satisfaction. When you fragment your attention, you not only lose productivity, you lose access to these flow states, you lose the ability to completely lose yourself in something you love doing, you lose the experience of being fully present in a moment, in a conversation, in an activity. But multitasking is not just an individual problem. It has become a social expectation. We live in a culture that idolizes constant busyness. Being always busy has become a status symbol. Saying you have free time is almost like admitting you are not important enough to be busy. This culture of constant busyness is slowly killing us, not just psychologically, but physically. Constant cognitive overload raises cortisol levels, the stress hormone. This leads to health problems ranging from insomnia and digestive issues to heart disease and depression. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times a day you check your phone? The average user checks their phone 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Every time you do this, you interrupt any deep thought process that might be happening. But it's not just phone. It's constant notifications, emails arriving all the time, simultaneous conversations on multiple platforms, meetings that could be emails, emails that could be 2-minute conversations. We have created a work and life environment deliberately designed to fragment our attention. And why did we do this? Because we confuse movement with progress. We confuse being busy with being productive. We confuse having access to lots of information with being well informed. We confuse being connected to many people with having deep relations. The reality is that true productivity, true innovation, true learning happen when you can focus deeply on one thing for a prolonged period. It is when you can enter that state of sustained attention that you produce your best work, have your best ideas, make your greatest discovery. Think about the moments in your life when you produced something you are truly proud of. They were probably moments when you were completely absorbed in what you were doing, without distractions, without interruptions. They were moments of deep attention, not multitask. Multitasking is not just inefficient, it is unethical to human nature. We are beings who evolved to focus our attention on one thing at a time. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors needed to concentrate fully on hunting or gathering. A distraction could mean the difference between life and death. Our brains are still essentially the same as our ancestors, but we are trying to force them to operate in a way they were not designed for. It's like trying to run modern software on an old computer. It works, but poorly, and with a lot of wear. The tech industry knows that. The companies that design our apps and digital platforms employ neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists to make their products as addictive as possible. They know exactly how to capture and fragment our attention. They know that fragmented attention is addicted attention. Every notification, every ping, every alert is carefully designed to interrupt what you are doing and capture your attention. And once your attention is captured, it is monetized. Your distraction is literally the product these companies sell to advertise. You are not the customer of these platforms. You are the product. Your attention is extracted, processed, and sold as a commodity. And the more fragmented your attention, the more valuable it becomes to this economic system. But there is something even deeper going on here. Multitasking is not only affecting our productivity, it is changing our relationship with life itself. When we are constantly dividing our attention, we lose the ability to be fully present in any moment. Have you ever tried to have a serious conversation with someone who is constantly checking their phone? How do you feel? You probably feel disrespected, undervalued, unheard. Now imagine you are doing this to yourself all the time. Imagine you are never fully present for your own life. That is the tragedy of multitasking. It alienates us from ourselves and others. When our attention is constantly divided, we are never fully present anywhere. We are always partially somewhere else, always with part of our mind on something else. Genuine relationships require presence. Creativity requires presence. Deep learning requires presence. Satisfaction requires presence. When we fragment our attention, we lose access to all these experiences that make life meaningful. Multitasking also affects our ability to deal with difficult emotions. When we are constantly distracted, we never have to truly face our feelings. We can always escape to another task, another distraction, another activity. But emotions that are not processed do not disappear. They accumulate. Many people use multitasking as a way to avoid anxiety, boredom, loneliness, or other uncomfortable emotional states. But this avoidance has a price. When you never allow these feelings to be fully experienced, you lose the opportunity to learn from them, to grow through them. Boredom, for example, is often the precursor to creativity. It is when our mind is not occupied with external stimuli that it can wander and make unexpected connections. But if you never allow boredom to happen, if you are always busy with multiple tasks, you lose access to those moments of creative insight. Loneliness is another state many people try to avoid through multitasking. But loneliness is essential for self-knowledge. It is when we are alone with our thoughts that we can truly hear our inner voice, understand our values, clarify our priorities. When you are constantly multitasking, you are never really alone. There is always some distraction, some activity, something occupying your mind. You lose contact with yourself. And here is something that might surprise you. Multitasking is affecting your ability to be happy. Studies show that people who multitask regularly report lower levels of life satisfaction. They feel more stressed, more anxious, more overwhelmed. This happens because genuine satisfaction comes from quality experiences, not quantity. It comes from being fully present and engaged with what you are doing. It comes from giving your full attention to a person, an activity, a moment. When you fragment your attention, you cannot have these quality experiences. You may do many things, but none of them really satisfactorily. You may be in contact with many people, but have no deep connections with any of them. Multitasking is also affecting our ability to form meaningful memories. When you are not paying full attention to an experience, it does not register the same way in your memory. You may have lived many things, but do not remember any of them well. How many times have you reached the end of a day and barely remembered what you did? How many times have you read an entire paragraph and realized you absorbed nothing? How many times have you left a meeting and could not recall the main points? This is the direct result of fragmented attention. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of multitasking is how it affects our relationships. When you are constantly dividing your attention, you are never fully present for the people you love. You may be physically present, but mentally you are elsewhere. Children especially are deeply affected by this. They can feel when you are not really present, even if you are looking at them. They can sense when you are physically there, but mentally checking emails, thinking about work, or worried about other things. Intimate relationships also suffer when you are never fully present for your partner, when there is always some distraction, something else dividing your attention. Intimacy becomes impossible. You may be together but not truly connected. And here is where the situation becomes even more complex. We are creating a culture where multitasking is not only accepted but expected. Children grow up seeing adults constantly dividing their attention. They learn that this is the normal way to be in the world. We are literally teaching the next generations that they do not deserve full attention, that it is normal to always be split between multiple things, that it is normal to never be fully present anywhere. The good news is that attention is like a muscle. Just as you can weaken it through constant fragmentation, you can also strengthen it through concentration practice. Your brain maintains plasticity throughout life, which means you can retrain it to focus deeply, but this requires a conscious choice. It requires recognizing that multitasking is a myth, an illusion that is costing you more than you imagine. It requires admitting that you have been deceived by a culture that confuses movement with progress, busyness with importance. Start questioning, awakened mind. When was the last time you allowed yourself to be completely present in a single activity? When was the last time you gave your full attention to a person, a task, a moment? When was the last time you experienced that feeling of being totally absorbed in something, losing track of time? The ability for deep attention is not just a cognitive skill, it is a spiritual capacity. It is through deep attention that we touch something greater than ourselves. It is through deep attention that we experience moments of transcendence, connection, meaning. When you fragment your attention, you not only lose productivity, you lose access to these expanded states of consciousness. You lose the possibility of having experiences that nourish your soul, feed your spirit, and give meaning to your existence. Multitasking is ultimately a way to avoid depth. It is a way to stay on the surface of things, never really diving into anything. It is a way to keep busy, so you don't have to face the deeper questions of existence. But the deeper questions of existence are exactly those that give life meaning. They are questions about who you are, what you value, how you want to live, what kind of person you want to be. And these questions can only be explored in states of deep attention. Recovering your ability for deep attention is recovering your ability to live a meaningful life. It is recovering your ability to be fully present for the moments that matter. It is recovering your ability to create, connect, grow. This does not mean you need to abandon technology or live like a hermit. It means using technology consciously instead of being used by it. It means creating spaces and times in your life where you can focus deeply on one thing at a time. It means recognizing that your attention is your most valuable resource and that you have the right and responsibility to protect it. It means understanding that in a world constantly trying to fragment your attention, the ability to focus deeply becomes a real superpower. Imagine what your life would be like if you could fully focus on anything you chose to do. Imagine what it would be like to have conversations where you were fully present for the other person. Imagine what it would be like to work on projects where you could enter a flow state and produce your best work. Imagine what it would be like to read an entire book without getting distracted, learn a new skill with total focus, meditate without your mind jumping to 1,000 other things. Imagine what it would be like to be fully present for the special moments in your life, instead of always being partially somewhere else. This is not a fantasy. This is your natural capacity as a human being, a capacity that has been temporarily obscured by the illusion of multitasking but can be recovered with practice and intention. Multitasking promises efficiency but delivers fragmentation. It promises productivity but delivers superficiality. It promises connection but delivers distraction. It is time to recognize this illusion for what it is and make the conscious choice to recover your ability for deep attention. Your life does not have to be a series of poorly executed simultaneous tasks. Your life can be a sequence of deeply lived moments, fully experienced, completely present. The choice is yours. The capacity is yours. The time is now.